There is a town in Maine which looks empty, but it isn't. It seems abandoned, and yet people are somehow attracted to it. Silent Hill is a town that waits. Beneath the fog and the rust, there is a power, ancient, hungry, and patient. And for centuries, that power has had followers. A cult that didn't believe in good or bad, but in order and chaos. They were called the Order. In their eyes, the world was rotten, godless. The Order's mission was to bring back God to the world and usher it into paradise. No morals or ethics would hinder their ways. Dark rituals, kidnapping, murder, drug trafficking, all for harnessing a power that is impossible to control for a human. Welcome to Silent Hill, a town of faith, of damnation, of mothers and monsters. In the Order scriptures, there is no divine creator who made humanity. It is actually the opposite. They tell of a time before time, when humanity existed in a state of endless suffering. We were immortal, but we knew only pain, hatred, and despair. In this eternal agony, a man prayed to the sun, offering a serpent and begging for salvation, and a woman, offering a reed, asked for joy. The Order believes that this place, this collective anguish, breathed life into God. She was born from humanity, a compassionate mother created to end our suffering. Her first act was to create time, separating day from night. Her second was to give us the gift of death, so we could finally know release. Her final promise was the creation of paradise, a perfect, painless world. But her strength was now spent, and her physical body about to perish. To open the golden gates of paradise, humanity must find a way for the goddess to be reborn. This is the core of the Order's faith, a fanatical drive to rebirth their god. And a god needs servants to fulfill their will. The Order's Pantheon is not a simple one. At the top sits their god, the Holy Mother, but serving her are other entities that reside in Silent Hill. There are angels like Valtiel, a being dressed in crude ceremonial clothes, creeping in the underworld. He is not a guardian angel in the traditional sense. He is an attendant, a steward of the rebirth cycle. He is seen turning the valves that shifts reality, a mechanic in his grand, horrifying machine. The cult speaks also of an angel called Metatron, whose seal is said to have the power to repel the forces of the other world. But where there is a force for order, there must be one for punishment. This brings us to Pyramid Head and the Butcher. They aren't figures belonging to the Order's religion, but are rather the physical manifestation of beliefs in judgment and punishment. They are the town's executioners, walking symbols of violence, guilt, and retribution, specifically tailored to those who need to face their sins. But gods and angels are nothing without followers. The Order began in secret. As Silent Hill grew from a colonial settlement into a sleepy tourist town in the early 1900s, the cult took root. They were despised at first, their beliefs seen as heretical. But influence is a tide, and theirs was rising. To grow, they needed two things: a way to open the minds of the masses, and a way to fund their holy quest. The answer came not from scripture, but from the soil itself. The white Claudia plant, a native flower believed to have hallucinogenic properties. The Order began cultivating it, processing it into a powerful narcotic they call PTV. This became their sacrament, and their product. On the streets, it was a drug trafficking operation, a source of revenue that filled their coffers and made them a shadowy power in the town's underworld. But within the cult, PTV was a tool of spiritual enlightenment, a key used to unlock the doors of perception. With money and a means of control, they infiltrated the town's most trusted institutions. They slid into the halls of Alchemilla Hospital, where life and death were decided, and where their drug supply could be managed. And they took over the Wish House Orphanage, where they could shape the minds of the young and vulnerable, creating new followers from birth. They were patient, they were disciplined, and they were waiting for the right vessel to bring their god into the world. They found her in a young girl with immense psychic power, a girl named Alessa Gillespie. And this is where the story truly turns to darkness. The High Priestess of the Order, Dahlia Gillespie, in an act of supreme and horrifying faith, offered her own daughter to the flames. She believed that Alessa was the perfect vessel to be impregnated with the seed of God. To accelerate this birth, Dahlia conducted an immolation ritual, setting her own home and her daughter on fire. Her plan was to birth God through a crucible of unimaginable agony. But the ritual failed. A truck driver, Travis Grady, pulled Alessa's charred body from the fire. The girl survived, but was left suspended between life and death, a scarred, broken vessel for a power she could not contain. Her endless hatred and pain bled into the very fabric of the town, giving birth to the nightmarish otherworld. And in that moment of agony, her soul split in two. One half remained in the hospital, a source of the town's power, a prisoner of an endless nightmare. The other half was reborn as a baby, free from the fire, found on the side of the road by a man named Harry Mason, who would name her Cheryl. The ritual had failed, but it hadn't ended. 7 years later, Dahlia made her final move. She drew Harry and Cheryl back to Silent Hill, intending to reunite the two halves of Alessa's soul and force the birth of her god. The events of the first Silent Hill game are full of sorrow. Harry, a simple man searching for his lost daughter, finds himself in a nightmare that he can't and won't escape. He needs to find Cheryl. In the end, Harry confronts the deity born from Alessa's fractured soul. He defeats it, and Dahlia's plan is shattered. But he loses Cheryl. In her place, he is left with a single baby, the reincarnation of Alessa's whole soul, finally free. A baby he names Heather. The cult was defeated, its leadership dead. For a time, it seemed the nightmare was over. Years passed. The cult was thought dead, its leadership shattered. But faith or madness, as a way of returning under a new guide, a new high priestess emerged, Claudia Wolf. A childhood friend of Alessa's, her faith was warped by the suffering she witnessed. She believed Dahlia's plan was flawed. To create a truly loving paradise, their god had to be born not from pain, but from pure hatred. And so, she sets her sights on Heather Mason. Claudia orchestrated the brutal murder of Heather's father, Harry, to fill her with an all-consuming rage, the perfect emotional fuel to finally birth God. The final act plays out. Heather confronts Claudia, defies her destiny, and swallows a substance that makes her vomit out the embryonic god. Claudia, in her madness, swallows it herself, giving birth to a malformed, broken deity that Heather ultimately destroys. With Claudia's death, the main branch of the Order was finally broken. But the Order's influence didn't die with Claudia. Its poison had already seeped deep into the world, creating other separate tragedies. Because the Order was never just one thing. It was a hydra with many heads, each with its own methods of devotion and damnation. First, there was the Sect of the Holy Mother. They were the architects of the mind. Their weapon wasn't the knife, but doctrine. Their battlefield was the soul, and their fortress was the Wish House Orphanage. This sect operated with a quiet, insidious cruelty. They raised generations of lost children not on love, but on fear and twisted faith. Children were taught that their deepest wishes would be granted if they prayed to the Holy Mother, if they were obedient, if they were pure. It was a system of control built on false hope and physical violence, and it's from here that came its most infamous creation, a boy named Walter Sullivan. They took an abandoned child and fed him a theology of madness. They taught him his mother was a paradise, a holy room that he had been separated from, a room he could only re-enter through the ritual of the 21 sacraments, through murder. The sect of the Holy Mother didn't just scar Walter, they built him into a monster who believed his pilgrimage of slaughter was an act of sacred love. Another group, the Sect of Valtiel, was responsible for the intermediation between the Sect of the Holy Mother and the Holy Woman led by Dahlia. Clad in pointed hoods and robes the color of blood, they took their name from the angel they served, Valtiel, the attendant to God. And then there were the ones who tried to escape, the splinter sect of Shepherd's Glen. They were heretics within a heresy. 4 founding families who fled Silent Hill, desperate to build a normal life away from the grasp of the Order. But you cannot flee a power that resides in the soul. So they made a deal with the very god they ran from, a pact. Their town would be spared from the fog, the monsters, the madness. In exchange, once every 50 years, each of the 4 families had to sacrifice one of their own children. It was a desperate bargain, a promise written in blood of their sons and daughters, a proof that the power of Silent Hill can never be controlled, only served. And eventually, these sects saw their end. The Shepherd's Glen cult fell to its own broken pact. The main branch that pursued Heather was gone. The cult haunting the town for over a century was, for all intents and purposes, dead. But the power they worshipped was never truly theirs to control. It was the town itself, its spirit, history, pain. The Order may be gone, but the sirens still echo in the distance. The town is still waiting for the next lost soul to wander in, for the next dark prayer to be whispered in the silence, a nightmare that is never truly over. But what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.